CF Montreal had a chance to meet some of their members a couple of nights ago at Club Soda. What a great vibe. What a great night. But unfortunately, bad news on the field because another player is out with an injury, a very important player. Speaking of which, the injuries are starting to line up. What does the coach have to say about it? The team named a captain. Pretty hard to argue with the choice. And what's the attendance going to look like at the Olympic Stadium? Well, it's that Saputo. It would be more than a sellout. We discuss all of that on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. I'm Marinaro. My buddies in Filosa and DeFalco will join me coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And here we are. Game 4 goes Saturday night at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal as CF Montreal will host the Philadelphia Union. Joining me, Filosa on my left, Gavino DeFalco to the right. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good.
Very good.
All right. Okay, good. Speaking of very good, what a beautiful night a couple of nights ago at Club Soda. Jeremy, I know you were there. Unfortunately, I was not there, but I could feel the vibe through all the pictures and all the videos put up on social media. Talk to us about it.
Well, listen, I want to tell people that, CF Montreal is a very fortunate organization to have all these supporters show up. I don't know, there must have been 300-400 people maybe. Club Soda was jammed, completely jammed to welcome the new players, the new coach, and everything. Because with the start of the season, I was a little doubtful about, how it would look. But they were enthusiastic. They were there. They were loud. They were screaming. They were chanting. They did everything to make sure the coach and the new players feel like they're wanted. And I could tell in the face of a lot of these new players, or even players that have been here for a year or two, that you sort of forget that there are fans at home watching you and hoping for you to do well. And I could tell in their faces that they appreciated that after, 2.5 months training, away from home, far from the fans. So I thought it was a really nice event.
Tough schedule, guys. Every year, CF Montreal starts on the road for a full month, and then they come back. It's tough. It's tough for CF Montreal, but like everybody else, I saw the pictures on social media, and it was a nice welcome for Hernan Losada and his players.
And, of course, for those who are starting to become fans gradually, slowly, but surely here, and are wondering why it is the way it is and what Gavino just said, long story short, obviously, it's because our winters and our weather is not as good as some other cities that they visit. And CF Montreal would have to play their games.
Stadiums are not as adequate, by the way.
Correct. So CF Montreal would have to play their games if they'd start at the beginning of the season at the Olympic Stadium. Yeah. They want to try and play as few games as possible at Olympic Stadium. So basically what happens is in the first 6 games of the season, usually one is in Montreal. Usually the others are on the road. They started their season with their first 3 on the road. And now they come back for one in Montreal on Saturday night. They're going to host the Union. Then they're back on the road again. All right. During that night, there were a lot of things that were brought up. Before we get to the announcement of the captain, Jeremy, is there one or two things in particular that were brought up in that roundtable with Patrick Leduc, Hernan Losada, Olivier Renard, and Gabriel Gervais?
Well, listen, they wanted to hammer home the point that, people need to be patient and that this is going to be the philosophy of the team. And, on IMFC Radio this week, Gavino asked a question. We're going to have Olivier Renard a little bit later on today and said, do you have questions? Tony, the question that comes back all the time, multiple times, when are we going to get a star player? When are we going to start spending money? And I think the point that they wanted to hammer out that night is this is not going to happen. So you need to be patient. You need to understand what we're going to do. And this is the way it's going to be. And that's about it. Yeah. So it was a clear message from the organization that they wanted to make sure to talk to their, most diehard fans and explain to them that this is the way it's going to be.
Guys, I know that in the past years we had players like Drogba, Piatti, DeVayo, even Patrice Bernier was somebody who we're looking at as a star player. But this year, guys, I don't see nothing on the field right now. They're struggling on the field. They're struggling building that chemistry, and we don't have that star players. And I'm worried about the season right now because a lot of players, a lot of youngsters. You can have 20 players from Quebec, but at the end of the day, it's about winning, guys.
Well, so yes and no. And let me explain. First of all, let's just be honest here. Let's put the cards on the table. It's a transition year. A lot of organizations have a difficult time in coming out and telling you it's a transition year. Take a look at the Montreal Canadiens, for example, okay? The word rebuild, they don't want to use it. Everyone knows that's what they're doing, but they don't want to use it because organizations are worried that fans will lose interest, and losing interest will mean selling fewer tickets and less people in the stadium.
There's a difference between saying that you're in a transition year or you're in a rebuild year and saying we might not be as good this year, but we think we can go further in the playoffs. I mean, listen, if you're thinking about going further in the playoffs, which is what they're telling us, well, it's not a rebuild and it's not a transition. Just, I'm not saying that you have to say everything, but at the same time, don't stretch it out to the point where you're talking about going further in the playoffs when you have 8 rookies in your 20-man roster. And yesterday, Hernan Lozada talked about this and said, guys, we have 13 players that are 20 years old or less.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, nobody's hiding here. The players are not hiding. The coach is not hiding. This is a young team. And if this is what we're going to go with all year, well, there are going to be growing pains. Massive growing pains.
I don't believe, guys, in transition year. You'll look at St. Louis this year. Expansion team, 9 points, 3 games. They scored, I think, 9 goals for a team that they didn't know each other in the few months. They just built a team, and they're at the top of the league. So transition year in the MLS, I don't believe it's.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it, guys.
Hold on a sec. I believe you can do it, and once again, I should not be doing this and comparing hockey and soccer. The only reason why I do it, I totally understand it's 2 different leagues, is because knowing that there's a much broader fan base of hockey than there is of soccer in Montreal. I want to try and make it understandable for as many people as possible. Okay. You could take an expansion team like the Florida Panthers in the early 90s, and they can go to the Stanley Cup final. You could take an expansion team like the Vegas Golden Knights, and they can go very, very far. You could take an expansion team like the Seattle Kraken, and they can be ahead of a team that wasn't an expansion team. Teams go through different cycles. They go through different periods. A transition year does exist. Now, I will say this. I've told you guys, and you know this, I love having Quebecers on the team. I love that. We talked about when we were kids. We used to go to the stadium. We used to go to Claude Robillard, and we saw so many players from the province of Quebec. The stadium was packed every game, 10,000 people out of 10,000. Now, you're probably going to come back to me and say, yeah, but in those leagues, the caliber was not as high, obviously, as it is in the MLS, not even close. And the team used to spend more money than other teams in the league back then, and they won 3 championships. I get all of that. The only thing I asked for was just tell us loud and clear what it's going to be like. And I think the other night at the launch, it was louder and clearer than ever before.
Listen, Tony, I got to tell you something. In hockey, when you're in a transition year, it's because you're forced to be in a transition year. Your veterans are getting older. You have salary cap issues. You have to turn over the roster. In soccer, this does not exist. The pool of players that are available worldwide is unlimited. If you choose to go in a transition year, it's because you've decided. Because otherwise, you can find a way to be competitive every single year. If you do what you need to do and you spend the money you need to spend and you do the research you need to do, you can be competitive every year. If you're in a transition year, because you choose to be in a transition year
Don't-
compared to
yeah.
all the other sports.
Tony, you talked about cycle. We had one good year in the last 7 years, maybe in Montreal.
Mhm.
2022, we had 65 points. So if you want to talk about cycle, for me, it lasts 3 years at least. And we just enjoyed 1 year, and that's it. We're back to square one right now.
Guys, I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm just giving a different perspective, the perspective that what is the organizational philosophy, because Jeremy's right. You can have 3 DPs. If you want to shell out $4 million on each DP and you have 3 of them, all of a sudden you're no longer going to be in a transition year. They've been banking on the collective. They looked at Toronto last year and they said, hey, look, Insigne alone makes more money than the entire CF Montreal team is paid.
Almost
but the CF Montreal team finished second in the East, and Insigne's Toronto were one of the worst teams in the league and didn't make the playoffs.
You could take any team, any roster, 1 year and make it look great. You could say 1 year, LAFC spent all this money and they won the championship. Then you can say, you know what? Colorado spent no money and they finished first in the conference. 1 year means nothing. It's consistency that counts. Consistency.
What would be pretty cool would be everyone puts a little bit of water in their wine and you have kind of like a hybrid model.
You
have young players, you develop young players, but you go out and you get a DP 10, for example.
Yes.
And then there's a little bit of water in everyone's wine and everyone's happy.
Exactly. Because right now the glass is pretty dry on
like
one
Nashville,
side.
Nashville, we saw it last week. 1-star player, number 10, surrounded by MLS proven players, and 1 rookie here and there, and that's it. You got a competitive team.
Exactly. All right. So at the launch at Club Soda a couple of nights ago, Sam Piet officially named captain of CF Montreal. Jeremy?
Well, first of all, lots of respect for Samuel Piet. You know, when Patrice Bernier retired, I really scratched my head and said to myself, who's going to take his spot? I mean, Patrice had been so big for this organization and everything he did on and off the field. He was a class act. He did everything you need from an athlete to promote that sport. And Samuel Piet has really taken that challenge and, ran with it. I think he's doing a fantastic job. There's one thing I need to say, though. I don't like the way this organization handles captaincies, okay? It's never clear. It's never clear. Sam was the captain last year. He was co-captain with Victor Wanyama. And this goes back till, after Mauro Biello. We have captains. Can we just name a freaking captain? Right now we have a captain. His name is Samuel Piet. Okay, perfect. I don't want to hear about naming another captain until Samuel Piet leaves this organization. And once he leaves, I want another captain to be named clear. You make a press conference. Yep. This is our new captain, and we're going ahead with him. Obviously, when the player is hurt or not playing, somebody else takes over for him. That's all great and fine. But I find every year, guys, for the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's like this guy's wearing the armband. This other guy's wearing. Who's the captain? We don't know. Do we have 1? Do we have 2? Who is it really? Just make it clear. It's important. It's important for the the consistency of an organization and for fans to know who's the leader on this team. Who are we relying on?
I'm just happy we didn't make the same mistake as 3 years ago. Remember Jukka Raitala as Montreal captain? You know, why this guy? I don't know. It was on a Saturday afternoon after practice in March. Yeah, by the way, Jukka Raitala is the captain. No press conference, nothing, no announcement. Yeah, by the way, you're the captain. So at least Sam Piet is the new captain. He's the face of the franchise. He's going nowhere. He's not going to be sold in Europe. He's going to be here for the next 5 years. So I'm happy for him.
Well, 5 years, we'll wait and see. His contract is not for 5 years. Having said that, you're right. He is a player who clearly decided when many members of the Canadian national team have decided to go overseas thinking it's going to give them a better opportunity at the next World Cup in 2026, Sam Piet clearly said, for me to be happy, I want to stay home. I want to be in Montreal. It's in Montreal that I want to play. The setting was very nice to do it. We have to put things in context. They haven't had a launch like that in like 3 years because of COVID. It was packed. There was everyone there. You're looking for something to get excited about. Unfortunately, the team is 0-3 after 3 games. The team is depleted by injuries.
Just want to finish up on Sam Piet, please, before we go to...
It was a good place to make that announcement. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, listen. Negotiations with Sam Piet last fall were not easy, I got to tell you. And it's the second time this organization gives him a hard time when negotiating. Remember the last time he had to come out public saying there was nothing going on and this and that. You know what Sam Piet makes? 3, 4, 500,000 maybe, whatever it is. Okay.
I would guess, without knowing because the numbers aren't out yet, I would guess he probably makes 4.25.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're not talking about a player who's making $3, $4, $5 million. Okay. Gabriel Gervais said it himself. He came out publicly and said those negotiations were not easy. Please, CF Montreal, stop this. Please stop this. Samuel Piet is the face of your franchise. He never refuses an interview. He always comes out, even after a loss, even when other players don't want to talk. He comes in and he steps in and he comes and talks to the media members. He does all these appearances. He's a class act on the field, off the field. Stop nitpicking and negotiating for $25,000. Give the guy what he wants, and let's move on. The only thing we want is Samuel Piet to be happy and to keep doing what he's doing right now. Yeah. So stop this, please.
And don't forget, guys, local talent, they make way less money than players that come from other countries.
He makes less money than Ahmed Hamdi. God
damn it. Doesn't make sense, but at the same time,
come on.
Local, and it's historically it's like this. Local guys, they make way less money. Look at the example. Patrice Bernier is one other example, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once again, to give the hockey comparable, for example, Philippe Deneau was looking for a new contract, and they weren't able to agree because the Canadiens management team felt Phil's going to take it because there's no way he's going to leave Montreal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and you know what? Sam told them, guys, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. Let's do this thing, right? And in a way, they tried to take advantage of that and said, this guy's not going anywhere. Let's see if we can lowball him a bit. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I love Sam. I have a lot of respect for Sam. He's there after a win. He's there after a tie. He's there after a loss. He's there before a game. He's there at halftime. He's there after the game. He's there the day after in the community. As a matter of fact, I believe yesterday he went to meet some disabled kids, always very well representing the organization. And guys, when you're a professional athlete in the city in which you were born, you end up getting kind of like celebrity status. And with celebrity status comes an awful lot of friends, maybe even friends you didn't ask for, and comes a lot of temptations and stuff like that. One of the most amazing things about Samuel Piet, and guys, we've been working in the biz for over 20 years, is that every now and then someone will whisper in your ear, this guy here, this guy there, this happened, that happened. You never hear anything about Samuel Piet. He is the perfect athlete, the perfect professional, the perfect leader, and he is a great and will continue to be a great mentor for a lot of those young players on that team. So congratulations, Sam.
Yeah.
We're very, very happy for you. Okay,
and once he retires, he's gonna have his place in the media for sure, 100%.
Well, I would hope he would have his place in the organization. Injuries, guys, they've been adding up one after another. The latest, Kamal Miller is out. And guys, that's a significant injury because that's an important player for CF Montreal.
Yeah, important player. George Campbell was hired thinking that maybe Kamal was going to leave, take a spot. George Campbell's not ready to play. Robert Thorkelson has just come back to training with the team this week. Logically, he'd be the one taking that spot. Hernan Lozada said, listen, might be a little bit just for this week, right? I mean, he just joined the team. I don't think he'll be able to start this game. Maybe if Kamal needs an extra game, we'll see after the break. Maybe at that moment, Thorkelson could come in. We'll see. But we have a problem here, guys. We have a problem. And I want to address this problem. The Impact, I've always had this problem with injuries. And I go back to Mauro Biello. I go back to Remy Gard. I don't remember how many shows I've done where I said this team is not able to line up their best 11 players because there are always injuries. Not one, not two, many injuries. Last year was the first year in forever that we were able to have a season where injuries didn't accumulate, and we saw the result on the field. Jules Guéguen obviously understood better than anyone what it is to train when you're a player in Montreal. What does that mean? Going from Florida to the cold, the heat to the cold, back and forth, training on turf, training on grass, training in Florida, training at Neutrale on a different turf, training at Neutrale on a different grass. And he found a way to make it work. Now, obviously, at the beginning of camp, Gavino and I asked the players, what do you think of the training? A lot of players admitted it's a lot harder than when Nancy was there. Was that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Nobody threw the coach under the bus, but they did admit it was a lot tougher. Now, the coach has a reputation. In DC United, a lot of guys came out publicly and said, this guy ran us into the ground, right? So I thought it was important to ask the Coach Lozada this week. I said, Coach, you got a lot of muscular injuries right now on your team. Guys, some guys took knocks. That's fine. That happens. That's part of soccer. But all these muscular injuries, what's going on? He didn't really like my question, to tell you.
Jeremy, I'm going to say this. I've taken in a couple of practices. I believe you've taken in more. Based on the couple that I've seen, and I can give you only my opinion on the couple that I've seen, okay? Based on the couple that I've seen, Jeremy, I don't see anything out of the norm. Like, I don't see running into the ground. I don't see, once the practice is over that you're doing sprints, 15s, like whatever and all that. I don't see that. Like, I don't see 15 sprints and you got to come back after 15. I don't see that. Now, and I don't know how this works, because obviously if you want to talk about fitness, I mean, if there's 1 million people in the world, me included, I should be the 1,000,000th person that you're going to ask about fitness, okay? Everyone else is ahead of me. I know nothing about this. Obviously not. Just look at me. Having said all that, this is what I'd like to know, and in my ignorance, I'll ask the question. It's probably a stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. So Jules Guéguen was there last year, and he had a formula in which the injuries were down. He probably figured it out.
Yes.
That formula, that template, what the coach did in terms of recuperation, what he did in terms of regeneration, what he did in terms of practices, what Jules did in terms of programs, okay? What Jules did in terms of recovery, what Jules did in terms of fitness, it's not documented that you go back and as a reference, you take a look, you compare. I don't know how
guys,
the only guy who was left on that coaching staff is Laurent Simon. Everybody else left.
Guys, maybe luck was a factor last year. It was a year everything clicked. Every piece of the puzzle, they were right at the same time, But, I mean, it's a concern to have half of the team on the disabled list after 3 weeks. I know that we're going to play a game this weekend, and then it's a break. It's an international break, but we all hope that Romel Kyoto's not going to get hurt with Honduras next week against Canada. That's another story.
Listen, guys, this whole debacle last year of this argument between Joey and Wilfred, whatever happened, okay? Now, we were all worried about, Wilfred Nancy leaving, but we're realizing today that, also the departure of Jules Guéguen at this moment is hurting the team, because the trainer that we decided to go pick up, I think he's from Argentina, with all due respect, and this guy may be the best in the world, and you know what? Over the next 6 months, he may prove to us that he is the best in the world. I have no idea. But I'm thinking to myself, this guy from Argentina, does he know all the realities that I just spoke about training in Montreal, the traveling, the turfs, the changes in weather, and everything like that?
Jeremy.
My answer is probably not.
Jeremy, hold on a second, please. Time out, okay? Time out. Let's be honest here. If Jeremy Filosa, Gavino Di Falco, and Tony Marinaro, who are doing a podcast right now out of our respective basements in our homes, know that these are some of the realities, I would imagine the fitness coach who's surrounded by a competent staff, some of who played the game professionally, as well as a sporting director who played it professionally, and they know, Jeremy. It can't be that he doesn't know like some of these factors.
Knows. It's one thing to know. It's another thing to know what to do about it. It's one thing to know. It's another thing to know what to do about it.
All right. Okay. So now, if with Kamal Miller out, what are we talking about here in terms of a probable lineup versus the Philadelphia Union, who came within a hair of winning the MLS Cup last year? Of course, they lost out to LAFC in the final. It was a couple of days ago after the last game, after Game 3, that Gavino Di Falco asked CF Montreal head coach Hernan Losada, asked him if it was time for a tactical change. And Losada said, no, with the players that I have right now, the reality is 3 center backs and wing backs. So the only thing that can change is you either play 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2-1.
Right.
Has any of that changed now with Miller getting hurt? Does anything change?
I don't think so. Listen, Joel Waterman showed last year that he can give you a hand on the opposite side of the field if you need for a game or two. I think that's what's going to happen because we're going into the international break. So this is the one game. So I think they'll move Waterman into Kamal's spot. I think Herrera comes into the middle. Zach Brault-Guillard probably gets a start on the right. I think that's what they're going to do. All the other guys, just to mention, are probable.
You think Herrera is going to play center back?
I think so. What other options do they have? Well, I don't see any other options.
So I got the same lineup. lineup. Zach Brault-Guillard as a right wing back, and then you move Herrera, Camacho, and Waterman. And on the left side, you hope that Lapalainen is going to be 80%. That's it.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And also, this is scary for me because for me, I see guys this week at not training. Lassi Lapalainen on the side, Samuel Piet on the side. The coach said they're probable for Saturday. But if you're starting these guys, I don't know how much they can give you, and what's the risk of aggravating these injuries, right? And if it's not Lapalainen, who's playing left back? Who's playing left wing back?
Guys, I have something for you, okay? Think about this for a second, okay? Everyone knows in an ideal world, you have a double at every position, okay? Yes. And right now, they don't have a pure left back, okay?
Right. Is your son free on Saturday? What is he doing? No? He's a left back.
So, listen, Olivier Renard is a very, very smart man. We all know that. He's a very, very smart soccer mind. I don't need to remind anyone of that, but I'll say it anyway. So, the fact they don't have a left back, what do we know about the way CF Montreal plays 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2-1 and playing out of the back? This is an Olivier Renard philosophy. So whether they had Wilfred Nancy or they have Hernan Losada, it wasn't going to make a difference because they were going to stay within the same philosophy that was implemented a couple of years ago. Correct?
Yep.
So my opinion is, even if you had a left back, guys, they're not playing 4 men in the back because think about this. When Kamal Miller was healthy, so let's just say last week, for example, guys, what position did Kamal Miller play with Orlando City?
He played left back.
He played left back.
So he also played left back on occasion with the national team.
Correct. Now, Olivier Renard likes him better as a left-footed center back. No problem. Yep. But if they really wanted to play 4 in the back, they could have put Herrera at right back. They could have put Kamal Miller at left back, and they could have put Camacho and Waterman at center back. But the fact that they didn't is we have to understand they have their philosophy, and they're going to respect it, and that's the way it's going to be.
Guys, the philosophy, no matter what, it's all about winning, guys. Why don't you play a 4-2-3-1 conservative system against Philly that you know you're going to get destroyed if you play the 3-4-1-2 or whatever, because it's most offensively minded. So you play the 4-2-3-1, you sit back and you wait for your chances, your counterattack. I don't think Montreal is going to win. With all due respect, with Jim Curtin, yesterday I was hearing his press conference and he was saying, yes, Montreal is our toughest opponent since the start of the season. You know, guys, the Oscars were last Sunday, not Wednesday. So, I mean, I don't know if Jim Curtin is
Gavino, attention.
Guys. 65% of possession doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. How many chances did you create? You had only 8 shots on target since the start of the season. 8 in 3 games.
Let me finish. The coach to himself said that he doesn't care about possession at all costs. He wants it to result. He wants it to be possession with a purpose. All I'm saying is, Gavino, everyone knows that the Philadelphia Union have a stronger team than CF Montreal this season. Everybody knows that. Everyone knows that with CF Montreal's injuries, it's going to be even much more of a challenge. The only reason why I said, attention, c'est pas évident jouer au Stade Olympique. And it's not evident to play on turf either. That's it.
Philadelphia came in last year, beat Montreal 2-1, I think, at Olympic Stadium. But just to say, okay, just to get back to the formation, guys, the philosophy is to play 3 center backs. Fine, no problem. I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is a good team can adjust temporarily if they have injuries or if in a match situation they need to go into a 4-2-3-1 or whatever it is. This organization over the last couple of years has not shown me that they train for that they practice for that they're ready for that in the situations where it's requested or it's required. And that bothers me a little bit.
All right, okay. Give or take about 20,000 at the Olympic Stadium on Saturday. That's the number that we heard at the launch in terms of what's the expected attendance. And we were told, give or take about 20,000. Your thoughts? Gavino, we'll start with you.
Guys, I was expecting maybe 12, 13. I haven't seen any signs on highways or whatever. So imagine if we had a star player with that, would have been maybe 25, 30,000 people. So 20,000 people. I know, congratulations to everybody who was going to be at Olympic Stadium this Saturday. But guys, I'm very, very surprised.
I'm surprised too. The first 2 games at the Big O last year, there was a Champions League game and the home opener also, I think it was about 13,000. So I wasn't expecting much more, especially after, a slow start to the season, an off season where you didn't pick up any players of any name that would like attract fans. So again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, CF Montreal should count themselves very lucky to have these fans that are continue supporting them in this way. And it's a good thing that we have 20,000 because, but by the time we get to Saturday, hopefully they'll sell a few thousand more. And if we get to 25, we'll have the whole lower bowl filled, and it's going to make for a better team game ambiance.
Guys, I can't wait to talk to you again on the Sick Podcast CF Montreal Talk because, of course, we're going to come back on the game that is going to be CF Montreal versus the Philadelphia Union. And I'm sure Sporting Director Olivier Renard will give you guys what they call du bonbon later on today on IMFC Radio, and we're going to pick up on what he has to say to all of you. Until then, I'm Marinaro. He's Filosa. The other guy's DeFalco. Sick Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SickPod CFMTL and join our YouTube channel. Subscribe. It's absolutely free.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.